Thank goodness they're finally gone. Forgive me, my king. I know you would not approve of me eavesdropping, but I felt it best to stay out of sight. What Rayen and Sareen said was not for my ears. I know I have had my differences with them, but I cannot deny the loyalty they feel for you, their dedication. It's strange. I never really envied them until now. They still have hope. They believe that there is something they can do, some method they can find to bring you out of this illness and back to the man you were. I dearly wish I could do the same. Hold out hope that something I do can help you. But what do I have to give? Rayen has her medicine. Sareen has her books and spells. All I have is my weapons, my skills. But what good are blades against an enemy like this? Were this an assassin with a knife, or a warrior with a sword, I would not hesitate to strike them down before they came within an inch of you. But this... I have never felt so useless, so helpless in all my life. At this moment, I would trade all of my training, every trick and technique I ever learned for just one thing. One small thing I could do to ease your suffering. I never would have thought that any man, let alone a human, could inspire me the way you do. Could make me see the value in the world, in people, in myself. You showed me that there were things in life worth fighting for, worth dying for. Every time I have stepped between you and danger, I have done so with a full heart. You do not command my loyalty. I give it to you freely. Because I know that you would do the same for me. That you have done the same for me. I was never more than a weapon, even to my own people. A blade to be pointed at their enemies, at the humans they hated. I had no identity, no life. Even my name means no one. My entire life, my fate, belonged to others. It was not my right to question, only to obey. I lost count long ago of the men I have killed, of the children orphaned by my sword, of the wives that grieved for husbands, snatched from them by a nameless form in the dark. With every death, I became more of a monster, lost more of myself. I knew I was well beyond redemption, my hands too stained with blood to ever be clean. But it did not matter. We were at war, and that war was my entire reason to exist. But wars, even among my long-lived kin, cannot last forever. Eventually, each side grew tired of the carnage and sued for peace. Elf and human joined hands in friendship and pledged to rebuild, to forget the slights of the past, and to look to the future. It was a future that did not include me. My fellow shadows and I suddenly found ourselves criminals, denounced by the very people we served. We were fanatics, they said. Zealots who had ignored orders and committed atrocities without their consent or sanction. We had never expected reward or even thanks for what we did, but to be thrown to the wolves so easily, to be discarded like refuse when they had no further use for us. One by one, I saw my brothers and sisters cut down, dragged back to human settlements to be traded for the bounty on their heads. I would have suffered the same fate if it hadn't been for you. When you came to my cell, I was sure that you would order me tortured, beaten, or even worse. The last thing I expected was for you to order my release. You even returned my belongings to me. Even so, I did not have it in me to trust you. I felt sure that you intended some trick, some blackmail or coercion. There are many uses a knight might have for a killer with a price on her head and nothing to lose. When I asked you what you wished of me in return, your only request was a few moments of my time. You even offered to provide me food while we talked. Normally, I would have refused, but I had not eaten anything in days, and I was curious. Even if you meant to use me, perhaps I could turn that to my advantage. I'll never forget the look on your face when I asked you who you wanted me to kill. There was no shock, only sadness and sympathy. It was as if you could see into my heart. See the emptiness inside me. I don't want you to kill anyone, you said. I want you to be my bodyguard. For a moment, I couldn't even find the words to answer. Me? A bodyguard? My skills were meant to take life, not to protect it. Why would a human, a king no less, ever trust his life to an elf? An assassin? I was almost certain that you were suffering from some sort of mental delusion. When I asked if you were not afraid that I would slit your throat in the night, you simply smiled. Though I have no idea how, you had learned much of our order, our code of honor. We only killed those that were deemed as a threat, despots, and those we had been told were corrupt. If the time came, you said, when I held a blade at your throat, then you would know you had failed to be a good king. I have fought countless foes, faced many threats, and yet I had never seen such courage from any man. you had no fear of me at all. I found myself needing to understand just where such resolve could come from. I never wanted for anything after that day. You gave me everything I needed. Weapons, clothing, a room that was almost as lavish as your own. But that was not what mattered to me. What kept me by your side? It was the things you gave of yourself. Your trust. Your honor. Your faith in me. Gifts that no amount of gold or jewels could ever replace. As I followed you each day, as I watched the smiles on the faces of those we passed, the looks of admiration from your guards and advisors, I began to realize just where your courage came from. It was not from years of war or rigorous training. You were not battle-hardened or molded by the trials of life. Your strength came from your people. You gave all of yourself, and their gratitude gave you the will to stand for them. Were it for their benefit, you would face any obstacle, endure any torment, and you would do it without fear. More and more, I found myself wanting to be a part of that strength, to be of value to you, to share that dream, that devotion that made you so strong. Perhaps it was silly of me. A good shadow should be unseen and unheard. Anonymity is a greater protection than any armor. And yet I could never feel anything but happiness when your eyes met mine. When you would smile at me or reward me for protecting you. With you, I became more than just a weapon. I had worth. I was never really sure of how much I meant to you until the night we were ambushed. They came out of nowhere, cutting down your guards before they could draw their weapons. Before I knew it, we were both surrounded by at least 12 armed men. I told you to run, that I would clear a path so you could escape. But you wouldn't hear of it. You refused to leave me behind. To this day, I have no idea how we managed to defeat them. All I remember is standing back to back with you, fighting with everything I had. I had never known fear. I accepted my own death long ago. But that night, I was near to panic. Not for myself, but for you. Every time I heard you wince in pain, every time you stumbled, my heart skipped a beat. I was so frightened that I would hear you fall, that you would draw your last breath, that I would have to live the rest of my life never hearing your voice again, never walking beside you. That fear should have hobbled me, made me incapable of acting. But instead it gave me strength, kept my blades moving, kept me standing tall when I should have collapsed. That night, I finally learned what it meant to fight for something I believed in. For someone I believed in. I was not just following orders. Your fate mattered to me. You mattered to me. By the time the last foe fell, you were covered in wounds. You could barely stand, but still the first question you asked was whether I was hurt. It took all of my control to keep from sobbing. Here you were, exhausted, half dead, and all you cared about was whether I was all right. That was when I realized that I could never truly leave your side. That I was bound to you by more than simple duty or benefit. That was the night I ceased to be a monster and became a woman again. A woman who would do anything you asked of her. Who loved you more than she could ever. But I also knew I could never say the words to you. At least not when you could hear them. As much as I wish it so, I could never give you what you deserve. Never be the person to hold you close, to share your heart. Such a vow must be made in honesty. If I were to let you truly know me, if I were to tell you even a fraction of the terrible things I have done, you would never... I know that I am helpless, that I can offer little, but what I have already given. But I have not lost faith in you, my king. You are the bravest man I have ever met. You may be broken, exhausted, but you will never be defeated. This disease will not be the end of you. I know it. I know it as surely as I know the sun will rise. One day soon, you will be well again. You will walk in the light. You will know happiness. You will have fine sons and daughters. And until death closes my eyes for the final time, I will watch over them as I have watched over you. Keep fighting, my king. You have all the strength you will ever need. Your subjects stand with you. My sister swords stand with you. I stand with you.